Engari rā ka tima tātou nei wānanga o te pō, me pāna ki tō tātou nei karakia ma te kaupeka nei. Te me i anō rā kia koto, kia uru mai ki roto i tēnei kōrero, ka pai rā. E nui ngā kaupapa kai mua rā i tō tātou nei arawara, no reira, ka tima tape rā tō tātou kōrero ki te karakia. Manawa tīna, manawa toka. Tēnei hoki tō manawa ka tīna, tēnei hoki tō manawa ka toka, tēnei hoki tō manawa ka pautāi ki tia. Tīna no o tō manawa, e manawa ora, e ora. Tūturu wō, ti waka maua kia tīna, ui e, tai ki. So of course we've gone through quite a number of our karakia over these last few months, and our final one's on the 14th of December. The October, November and December karakia, if you have had a look at them, have some similarities, and it's more because of this particular time of year and the type of mahi that happens during this time of year, the type of tohu that we see in the taiao as well. So of course last month we talked about this karakia, ka tangita kawekawea, and what we talked about is this particular time of year is or saying being koanga, and the certain signs that we see, that we hear, that herald the arrival of spring. And one of them, of course, is the tangi of the kawekawea and the tangi of the wāraurua. Do we recall what the kawekawea and wāraurua birds are?
Itahi manu.
Right.
Shining cuckoo.
Yeah. Do we know which one's the shining cuckoo? So the shining cuckoo is the wāraurua, or the pipi wāraurua, you may hear it as. The other one is the kawekawea, and that's the long-tailed cuckoo. We familiar with the ways that a cuckoo rears its young? Have we heard that?
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah. Hea ngā kōrero.
It gets other birds to rear its young, so
Yes.
it's some with other birds and they rear them even when they're photos you showed us, that I can't remember the type that rears it, but they were half the size of the pipi.
Right. So for the pipi wāraurua, the wāraurua, it's a riro that tends to rear its young. So the pipi wāraurua will nest its egg in the nest of a riro, and as the egg starts to grow and then hatches, it starts to push all the other eggs and all the other young out of the nest. And then the riro, which is only a real little bird, then focuses all of its attention on rearing the young of another bird. And of course that bird being the wāraurua. So that's the particular way that it lays its eggs, and then another bird then fosters the young and then raises it. So those that were part of last month's would have seen the difference in size. So riro, for example, is only about this big, but a baby pipi wāraurua is about that big. There's only a real little manu that works really hard to be able to feed and rear the young of another bird. And if you got the opportunity as well to listen to the calls of those particular type of manu, some of you may have been hearing those manu over this last 1 or 2 months. And like I said, that when we hear those calls, it heralds the coming of spring, because the birds have done their big migration through the Pacific and then have returned to Aotearoa to mate and then to lay their young with their eggs. So ka tangi te kawekawea, wai o kia tangi ana. The kawekawea, or the long-tailed cuckoo, will chirp, allow the manu to do its singing, because again the singing is a sign. When we hear that singing, we know that it's the coming of spring. Ka tangi te wāraurua, wai o kia tangi ana. when we hear the wārauroa sing, allow it to do its singing, because again, it's a sign of the coming of spring. E tatari atu ana ki aroaro maana. We then wait and then prepare for this time of aroaro maana, the warmer months. So as the earth begins to warm up, as we begin to warm up, that's the time that we then wait for. So it's all about getting ready, getting prepared to sow the seeds in the garden. So when aroaro mahana arrives, we then see the starting of the blossoming of the seeds and the blossoming of the plants. Kataka mai te a uru koia. Then falls upon us or descends upon us this time of serenity, this time of comfort, and then it's time to make a start. Koia is a bit of a play on words as well, because it's also in reference to the core. And we'll come to that one in the next karakia around the core and the implement used for gardening. But it's effectively saying now's the time. Now's the time to start preparing the grounds. Now's the time to start selecting the areas where you want to be laying your gardens, ensuring that you've got all the nutrients in the ground that you need, ready to then go ahead and start planting your seeds. And that tends to happen around that spring period of the September month. But this karakia is a really lovely karakia for mara, any ma'i around the mara, any ma'i around growth, any kaupapa in relation to waiting for particular signs that herald a time of year. So like we see, it's the particular tangi of these manu that then herald the coming of spring. New growth, new opportunity. So that's how we can apply it in different situations. If there's kaupapa that speak to those kinds of environments, those kinds of situations, this is a good karakia for it.
Could you use it like in a metaphorical sense? Say if something, there was something icy happening at your mahi or something, there was some tension. Would you use something like this?
Yeah, I mean, if the intention of you using it is for us to be looking forward for those signs of being prepared, ensure that we as a group are more prepared for what's coming ahead, that would be appropriate. But it's all about the intent.
Okay. It's like, I was thinking if there was rariraru, you could use this to kind of in anticipation of warmer times between each other, no?
Possibly. I mean, there's other karakia like the ones we've done in previous months, such as the one I started off with, manua tina, manua tina, manua toka, manua toka. All about having the resilience and fortitude within us to be able to forge ahead and do that in a combined way, do that together.
Sure.
But I really like this one because it refers to spring, new growth, new development, new opportunity. Any other partai around that karakia? Any other kōrero tāpiri? So I'll have a look at our next one. So this is Ngā tū te kō. So this is one verse of about 3 verses. I'll show you guys the 3 verses if you want to take a photo of it after. But this again is a beautiful karakia for this particular time of year. So ngā tū te kō, tēnā te kō katu ki tua, tēnā te kō katu ki wao, tēnā te kō katu ki a rangi nui e tū nei. Any familiar words within those lines? If we look at the word tū, what do we think that's in reference to?
Is it like to start doing something or to stand?
Yeah, that's how we tend to hear tū in reference to standing, to starting, even at times to stopping.
Is the core the instrument for digging?
Yes, exactly. And I've got an image that I'll share on the next page, but I'm sure some of you are familiar with the look of a core, and the core being a digging implement, digging tool. How about two in terms of an atua? What do we know about two in that regard?
Tū mātauinga. The atua of humanity and strategy, war. And he was one of the atua, you know, you have tū and rongo. So rongo marairoa being the atua of peace, and tū mātauinga being, you know, kind of that protection or war, like ana marae, you know, I roto I te whare tūpuna, he rongo marairoa, marae ātea he tū mātauinga.
Yeah, polite your two. Tika. So we're familiar with that in a marae context, aren't we? So the domain of two is outside on the marae ātea, and the domain of rongo is of course inside in the arena. We hear wakataukitanga kōrero such as he pukenga tō tū, he pukenga tō rongo. That two has his skills and that rongo has his skills. And at particular times, we need to draw on those. So tū mātauinga or tū matauinga. So mata, we're familiar with the word mata. Aha te mata. The face. Uenga. We heard that word. So ue is to grimace. So if we think of someone who's doing a haka, doing a pukana, it's the expressions that you make. So tū mata uenga, so two of the grimaced face. We familiar with any other characteristics, any other names of two?
Maru.
Sorry?
Maru. Tira e
Maru?
ingoa no mō tū mātauinga.
Well, he atua anō a maru. So maru is also in this karakia, and when I bring up the longer version, we'll see. But are we familiar with any other names of two? So you tend to hear them in by kōrero, you hear them in waiata. Kia ora, Kelvin. So, for example, tū ka riri, tū ka ngua. So, to the angry one, to the battler. You may also hear reference to tū kai tangata, tū kai taua. So, to the consumer of men, to the consumer of war parties. And also tū te nganaho. Have we heard tū te nganaho? So tū te nganaho in relation to so the time of separation of rangi and papa. Not all of the tamariki were happy with the separation, and Tāwiri Mātea being one of those. And because of that, Tāwiri then battled his brothers. It was only two that he wasn't able to overcome. So tū te ngana hau. So hau being the winds, and ngana being to stand against, to try. So tū te ngana hau. So these are all characteristics of two. These are all expressions of two. These are ways that we hear about two. Tū mātauinga, tū ka riri, tū ka ngua, tū te ngana hau, tū kai taua, tū kai tangata. But when we tend to think of two, we tend to think of him in this like in a battle environment, in an angry environment. See him as a person that there was a deity who's angry, who battles, who's about conflict. But the other side of two is about having a sense of commitment and having a sense of dedication, a sense of fortitude towards a kaupapa, towards a cause. So you tend to hear that with characteristics such as tū pakari, tū kaa, tū maia, And when we look at this particular karakia, that's probably more about the type of two that we're referring to. So not to the angry one, but to the committed one, to the dedicated one. So again, if we go back to what Hui has said in terms of core being the digging implement for mara, this particular karakia is about mara. And the reason why we see two, nā tu te core, so the core belongs to two, is because you need a sense of dedication, you need a sense of commitment, you need a sense of discipline to be able to be in the garden for long periods of time, preparing the ground, sowing the seeds, tending and caring for the garden to ensure that it grows and produces the kai needed to sustain the community. So that's the type of two that we're referring to here. Tēnā te ko katu ki tua, tēnā te ko katu ki waho. So tua, we're familiar with that as a word? How to tua? Okaro? We may hear it in kōrero when we refer to our mate. Ngā mate aere kaitua o te aroa. So in this regard, tua to mean beyond our sight. So of course, it's just referring to the tilling of land, the turning of soil that we know is happening, but we can't see. So it could be happening in another garden or happening in another area of the garden, but we know that it's happening. Tēnā te ko katu ki wao. So again, the turning of the soil, the preparation of the mara that's outside. Tēnā te ko katu ki a rangi nui e tū nei. The turning of the soil, so rather being faced this way, it gets turned and then it faces up towards rangi. So effectively, the imagery within here is if you're putting a spade in the ground and then you turn in the soil, spade in the ground, turn in the soil. That's what these 3-4 lines are referring to. And the first one, of course, really setting the scene that it's about commitment, dedication, and discipline from two that we need in order to complete our mai, in order to ensure the well-being and the sustainability of our people, of our communities. So,
e pātai tākuti. Is it right of me saying this karakia is quite appropriate after the one you just went through? First of all, you know, it's the time of planting. Now we move into the space of actually doing that mahi, given the season and time of year our whenua is in. Is that? Yeah, cool.
Exactly. So that's why we've set these. So the karakia for October, November, and December, ideally karakia that follow each other. Maybe not in those particular months, but one is we see the signs that herald the coming of spring. We then need to go out into the garden and then get things prepared. We then need to start sowing our seeds and then getting ready for harvest. So that's what those 3 karakia are in relation to.
No, kia ora, miharo.
So again, the types of signs, the types of tōku that we look for to know that it's time to do the preparation of the land, time to go out there and start digging. We've heard 2 in relation to the other karakia. Te tangi o te kawikawiā, te tangi o te Aotearoa. We're familiar with any other tohu during this time of year that we know that it's springtime. Any in your area or any that you've been brought up with?
Kia ora, Chief. Kona tēma mō pua I puāwai, nā puti, me te taina mai o wera o nā manu, atu I te kuaka, I rātu o nā tumo mō manu I tai tāwhiti mai. Yeah, you know, those kind of birds that come from afar, certainly with the changes of the winds that come on, travel from afar, our kuaka for one, our taiko, certainly different manu, but it's generally the insects. Yeah.
Tell us more about that, Kelvin.
Oh, you will notice the different, I suppose, sandflies, and so with the changes in water, the arrival of different insects, the dreaded white butterfly. You know, so those are those kind of tohu that say that the whenua is warming up. Certainly with the grass, having to mow the lawn twice. But generally you can see it with the birds. I noticed in our around in the bush, etc., that we're seeing a lot of differences. It's getting warmer quicker. I do mahi down at Wharikauri, down in Chatham's, so noticing a lot of differences in the water as well. So there is a time for everything. You know, just don't look for things that are on the land. You'll notice things at nights as well.
Yep. Yeah, it's exactly right. So things here, when I think of us here in Waitara, even out around Uranui area, so this is the time for whitebait. So we see inanga in our waters. We see piaro in our waters. And so again, he tōua no era. Pera ki te kōrero a Kelvin ka pua wai mai te pua o te kōwai. So we start to see the kōwhai flower starting to blossom. And again, tōu signs of this time. Kia ora, Rodney.
Kia ora.
Oh,
we used to do the old, when the kōwai flowers drop in the awa, there used to be time fishing for whitebait and that sort of stuff, different signs of the budding and different things within the awa that you see in the season changes. You know, Dad used to teach us all that sort of stuff around the gathering of the mussel, the kaimoana, the same thing. You know, the seasons when they're fat and everything else. But yeah, it's like the insects. But like down where we live, we can hear right now, we can hear the penguins at night, you know, nesting. So yeah, so we hear all that going on. So there's all different things. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome, Rodney.
Kia ora, Kelvin.
You know, it's one of the big things that we're seeing now is the migrations of whales. So heaps of whales. The sharks are getting quite active, especially the seven gills. So, you know, there's lots of activity that's happening. Everything's warming up.
And even in the room mouth down here, you know, the kōwai are chasing the whitebait. So, you know, they're nice and fat down the river mouth. The mullet, when the water warms up, the mullet are up the rivers. So, you know, so there's all different stuff. It's really, yeah, it's good if you can stick to nature. Like you say, look at the bush and you can see the different blossoms coming to tell you the weather patterns for the summer. Yeah, so just it's inspirational just looking around if you can read those signs. I didn't really realize I knew that stuff, but until you started kōrero around it, Mitch.
Yeah, and those are the signs when we look at this particular karakia and we know that it's time to go out and start digging the garden. There are those other signs in our taia or in our environment that indicate the time. So, like you said, Rodney, it's being aware, being in tune with our environment that helps us understand when it's time to do things. So if I then bring up that image, just to show an image of the core. So when we're referring to Ngāti Te Ko, this is the particular type of core that we're referring to. And of course, this is the type of action that it inspires. Community action, togetherness, long working hours, the commitment, the discipline needed in order to do this work over long periods of time. So this particular karakia, of course, while it was a karakia used for the preparation of mara, for the preparation of the ground ready to sow seeds, it was also utilised by our whānau, by our puropiti and pariaka as a way to inspire people to go out and do these types of activities. Because as we know, the types of gardens that would have been in place at pariaka would have been extensive gardens. And would have required a lot of effort, a lot of manpower in order to prepare those gardens and get them ready to receive the seeds. So again, being able to see the longer version of our karakia here. So the first version, or the first verse is what's in the calendar, but these are the other two verses. So this is the longer part of the karakia. So feel free to take a photo of that if you'd like the longer version. Sorry, that should be here as opposed to hall. But it then goes on, he koanga nuku, he koanga rangi. Koia ki te uru o te rangi e tū, koia ki te rangi e tū, koia ko te papa e tū. So koanga, of course, we know what koanga means, that it's around spring, so koanga. So the spring above, or the spring below, the spring above. So like Calvin said, the movement of insects during this particular time that happens below. Koanga anuku, the birds that we're seeing that are starting to migrate back to Aotearoa, the stars that we may see in the evening and the night sky, or even in the morning sky, that all herald the coming of spring. So he koanga nuku, he koanga rangi, hoia ki te uru o te rangi e tū. So te uru o te rangi, you may hear it as te tāuru o te rangi, te kāuru o te rangi, all about the uppermost parts of the heavens. And in this regard, it's more about the attributes, the characteristics that we need as individuals to aspire to that level of dedication, that level of discipline, to be able to achieve the work that needs to be done. Koia ki te rangi e tū, koia ko te papa e tū. So again, in reference to rangi, in reference to papa, but as we've talked about in other sessions, rangi and papa also has reference to us as individuals. So when we think of nuku, it's from the shoulders down, and it's all about the effort, all about the labour, the manual labour required in order to do the work. Rangi, from the shoulders up, is all about the knowledge and the experience that you need to know where to do the planting, what time to do the planting, how to do the planting, the right types of implements, the right types of tools, where the next garden needs to be in the cycle of the movement of the gardens. So while rangi and papa can reference sky and earth, it also references us and our own abilities to be able to achieve what it is that we're wanting to achieve. Koia ko mā tike tike e tū, koia ko mā rangaranga e tū. So mā tike tike mā rangaranga is more about so it's something that's unshakable, something that's immovable. So it's having that level of discipline, having that level of commitment that doesn't wane. Because there's a big kaupapa, a big job ahead of us. It takes many hands to make light work. If everyone does it together, we'll be able to achieve the purpose a lot more easier. So being committed to that task and ensuring that you get it done in the right way and in the right manner. Koia ko maru. So as Teresa mentioned, maru as a matua. We hear maru here in a number of contexts. So if we consider from a tokomaru context, one of the atua on tokomaru is known as maru. Maru ariki kai atua, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but maru is one of our atua that came on board tokomaru with us. We hear maru in relation to gardens, in relation to rongo. We also have a saying, maru kai atu, maru kai mai. And that's all about, we may hear it in other contexts as giving away or putting back your first catch. So you give that to maru in the hope that more will then come back to you. So maru kai atu, maru kai mai. You also hear sayings when you drop kai on the ground, wai o ma maru tēnā, leave that kai for maru now. So these are ways that we still hear maru being used. Ka tahuri mai ki au. So then it turns back to us, or back to me. And in order for me to understand what I need to do as an individual to be able to achieve the greater purpose. And in this regard, it's to ensure that we have a garden that's prepared to have enough kai to ensure the sustainability, the well-being, the survival of our community, and the responsibility that I have as an individual to participate in that in order to achieve it. So, ka tauri mai ki au nei. Kia rangi nui e tū nei, e tū koia te rangi e hai. So then, finishing off, that we consider the greater purpose, the greater reasons, the greater requirements in order to achieve this combined purpose, in order to achieve this togetherness, in order to achieve this desire, this need to work together to achieve those greater aspirations. If you have taken a photo, you'll notice a couple of mistakes that were noted. So here instead of all, e tū nei, e tū. So nā tū te kō, tēnā te kō katu ki tua, tēnā te kō katu ki waho. Tēnā te kō katu ki a rangi nui e tū nei. E koa manuku e koa ngā rangi koi ia ki te urua o te rangi e tū. Koi ia ki te rangi e tū, koi ia ko te papa e tū. Koi ia ko mā tike tike e tū, koi ia ko mā rangaranga e tū, koi ia ko maru. Ka tauri mai ki a au nei, ki a rangi nui e tū nei e tū. Koi ia te rangi e hai. So that's the longer version of the karakia. My understanding is that this karakia was used predominantly down in South Taranaki and Ngāti Ruanui, Ngā Rauru, but it was taken on board as a particular karakia that was used at Pariaka because of the work that was required. If we then consider the other big activity when we think of Māra at Pariaka and that work that happened for the sustainability and the well-being of our people, Māra in that regard also has another context, and of course that being the ploughing of the land that our tūpuna were doing in order to demonstrate their mana whenua upon their land during that particular time. So if we relate it to that, because this is how it was also related, not just in use in the Māra, but also to provide, so this particular type of karakia is, you may hear it called a wakaho. So to inspire, to command, to give direction. So in this regard, this particular karakia was used as a call for action, or call to action for our men that were going out to plough, and a call to action to ensure that they had the dedication and the commitment, the discipline, the resilience, the fortitude to do the work that they needed to do, knowing the consequences of doing that. So quite clever how tūpuna were able to utilise a karakia that was used for Māra, but use this as a way to inspire our whānau of the time to take up this cause and to forge ahead with the right type of discipline, the right type of fortitude, like I say, knowing the consequences of their actions. And as we know, many of them were jailed because of that, and jailed for at least 2 years, taken down to Otago. But this particular karakia was used to be able to call, to instill inspiration within our tupuna of the times to be able to do that work. There's a saying that Jamie uses, ka kōpenu te ihu o te toa. So the type of commitment that you need and the dedication and discipline that you need to not hit back when someone is pushing your nose and continues to push it. Ka kōpenu te ihu o te toa. So that's the type of inspiration that this karakia inspired. That there was this level of resoluteness, level of commitment to the kaupapa, that regardless of ka kōpenu te ihu o te toa, even though the Pākehā, even though the soldiers will continue to push the nose of the warrior would not respond in the same manner. The warrior would maintain the kaupapa, maintains their disciplines, their discipline, maintain their commitment, have such fortitude, such commitment to that kaupapa, that regardless of what was happening to them, they would continue to stand strong. So again, that's another angle to this particular karakia. While it's for Amara, it's also a karakia whakahau, a karakia to inspire our people.
I just want to ask about, so here you can, like, two matoanga is at the start and then maru further down. The reason that I said about maru earlier was I've been given a kōrero from Rarotonga where maru is the primary atua of that motu, and then they brought him over here, you know, on one of the rākau atua on the tokomaru, and part of that kōrero they said, so maru is another name for tū matoinga to some people, and Taranaki is a place where you'll hear that. But what I'm hearing now is that tū and maru are two different entities, not the same. They were referring to maru as the war god and then tū as the same.
So I think that each atua has their certain characteristics, and at times those characteristics may be quite similar. So in terms of warlike characteristics and attributes, I've also heard of Uenuku as another atua in relation to that. So not saying that each is the same, but there are characteristics that our atua will take on board that are at times similar to each other.
Yeah, Teresa, if I may jump in on that, kia ora.
Kia ora.
So, us as tangata, we're not always at war. And just like we reflect our atua, so like tū matauinga, he has the blue flame of peace. So he's not all about war. And so our sometimes it's a reflection of, I suppose, how our ethnographers from Europe have portrayed us. And so they've done the same thing in, I used to live in Rarotonga in the Cook Islands. And so in each of the different hapu that they have over there, they also have a different atua for war. So in Mangaia, the atua for war is not maru. And so just our kōrero, there may be a different name, same name, but like John Smith or whatever. But in terms of atua kōrero, it may be a new learning as well. And so those with the seasonal changes, our atua-ness changes. That makes sense.
Oh. Yeah, like Mangaia, the atua, primary atua is rongo me.
Yeah, one of the, so they have 7 different hapus, 7 different languages on Mangaia. And so they have, you know, it's, yeah, that was quite cool actually, learning more about it. But anyway, it's just like us, we're still regaining it.
Kia ora.
Yeah, I do actually. Koia te uru o te rangi e tū. Why are we facing the west?
Yeah, so that mean why we do hear uru as west. We also hear it as entering. In this regard, it's more like pauru. So in Karakia, you may hear references to te tāuru o te rangi.
Aroha mai. Yeah.
Or te kā uru o te rangi. That's what that's referring to. Te uru o te rangi. So the same reference to the uppermost parts of the heaven.
Kia ora, Chief. Marama.
So like I mentioned when we started, we've got our last wānanga on the 14th of December. That's when we do the December one. And we may look at doing some recaps as well around some of the other karakia. But if you haven't had a chance to listen to any of these other ones, we do have them on our website. So it's just on the media page, and there's a link there to our YouTube channel that shows all of the other wānanga that we've had throughout the year, talking about our karakia within each of our months on the calendar. We're going through the creation of a new calendar at the moment for this coming year. And what we're looking at for the next year is more around tungi and tungi kōrero, so around boundaries and the rohe of Ngāti Mutunga. So each month we'll focus on one particular area of the rohe and we'll have a little taki kōrero of a couple of lines that we'll then learn in the hope that by the end of the year you've got a nice 24 to 36 line kōrero that will take you throughout our Ngāti Mutunga rohe here in Taranaki. So you should receive that in late December and we'll complete that one. Now, probably the only other kaupapa for me is that we've got Taranaki Tūmai coming up. So it starts on Friday. We have our pōwiri at Taiporo Henui at 10 o'clock. Those of you who are able to come, we've got our accommodation at Waiokura. Events start off on Friday and go through to the kapahaka that's then on Sunday. So a great opportunity for us to be in Ngāti Ruanui and for us to be together as iwi, to catch up, have a kōrero, and to participate in some fantastic kaupapa with all of our other whānau throughout the muta, throughout the rohe here in Taranaki. No reira, ka mi atu anō ki a koto, ko uru mai rā ki roto i tēnei wānanga o te pō. Pāniki o tātou nei karakia, nā tū te kō, me ona āuatanga. Me ona āuatanga e pāniki te tai au, pāna nōra ki te māra, me te mai o te tangata ki a tūtuki ngā ia, ki a tūtuki ngā wawata me te whakaora i a tātou o te tangata. No reira, tēnei anō rā ka mi atu. Ka oka kapi ake rā, i tā tātou nei karakia o te pōnei, o tō tātou wānanga o te pōnei ki tēnei karakia. Reira, nā tū te kō, tēnā te kō katu ki tua, tēnā te kō katu kiwa, tēnā te kō katu ki a rangi nui e tū nei. E koanga nuku, e koanga rangi, koia ki te uru o te rangi e tū. Koia ki te rangi e tū, koia ko te papa e tū. Koia ko mā tike tike e tū, koia ko mā rangaranga e tū, koia ko maru. Ka tau iri mai ki a au, ki a rangi nui e tū, nei e tū. Koia te rangi e ai. Tūturu o uti o ka maua ki a tīna, ui e, tai ki e.